How have you managed to sustain a strong community over the last 4 years?
I think it really comes down to treating people in the community like they're individuals, not like they're a group.
What's sort of like the best style of content you've seen work? Is it video? Is it long form? Is it short form? Stories?
For conversions for an agency, it's definitely video, and video case study is definitely the one. But I was talking to Caleb about this because he does amazing podcasts. I told him, let me tell you, there are more people who know Caleb's face than know my face, right? And I've got 45K followers and Caleb between 5 and 10K followers.
Today's episode guest is a visionary entrepreneur and thought leader, paving the way for content creators to grow their brand and monetize in innovative ways. As the founder of Bricktopians, he's empowering holders through interactive community experiences. With a passion for empowering creators, he's pushing the boundaries of what's possible in Web3. Introducing Alex.
What's one business lesson that you've kind of taken away in the last couple of years?
I'd say one of the key lessons I've learned is...
Alex, how are you doing today, brother?
Going well, Juan. It's great to be reconnected and doing this on a pod.
No, 100%, man, 100%. I'm super excited to dive into this. We've been connected for quite some time now. And I think you're one of the founders that's been around for the longest time that I could like even think about. So just like fathom that you're still building, and I mean, it's in your name, right? Alex is building. So like to think that you're still going at it like pretty strong, just really good to see, man. I mean, I guess we can like dive in, like, tell me a little bit about who Alex is, right? Like, who's Alex? What's the story behind Bricktopians? Like, how did that actually just come to life?
Yeah, so story of Alex is I've basically been in Web3 my entire adult life. I think this year might be my 10th year in the space. And it's funny because I'm finally starting to feel old because like Caleb, who's in our team, is a lot younger than me, and I'm like, oh no, I'm actually starting to get past it a little bit. I'm no longer the young guy in Web3 like I remember I used to be.
Yeah.
And then you got Crypto Leon.
Yeah.
But when I was a lot younger, I was really passionate about making apps that kind of seemed to be what the meta was to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't drop shipping. It wasn't making, I guess there was a bit of e-com going around. It wasn't anything I really caught a wave of. I was just like trying to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, as everyone was at that point in time. Obviously was doing much less ambitious projects, but that was the pursuit that I was going down. And then one day my dad came to me and he said, hey, have you heard of this thing called blockchain? I learned about it at lunch today. I think you'd be really interested in it. You should check it out. And this would have been like 2015. And I looked up on YouTube, I looked up what is blockchain, and there was a video. It had like 13,000 views, and it was on like terrible green screen, was so much technical jargon. And there was little nuances kind of coming through of the sorts of things that you could build on a blockchain. Like, I've never been into the gamble-file casino space, but just this idea of like things like you could have a casino where there is no house, but all the token holders are the house, and like all these dynamic systems where decentralized people are participating and working collaboratively with one another without the need of a middleman. So like an example that was really big in like the 2016 era was this idea of like a decentralized Uber, which was an Uber where there is no Uber taking the 20% margin or whatever. It's just you and me, a driver and a rider, being able to interact with one another directly. So for me, I was like, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. This is going to get rid of all apps. There's going to be no companies. There's only going to be open source stuff being built where people work on it together as a community. And then we trade one another. We interact with one another. And that was what made me fall in love with this space. So that's when I started to learn about Ethereum, about smart contracts, making my first investments. Got kind of burnt by my first bull and bear in 2018. So it took a little bit of a hiatus. But yeah, then throughout the COVID period, just got back into it because I tried to inverse the market, something I'm not going to be trying to do at this point in time, even though it's red out there. So when I tried to short the market in that COVID period, I didn't have a lot of success with it. And I was like, that's it. I'm putting all my money back into ETH. It's the only thing I know about. And so I was lucky enough to kind of ride that COVID wave back up. And then in 2021, so if we rewind back to that 2016 period, the thing that I was really obsessed with, there was this one use case that I felt really needed to exist, which is being able to track sneakers on the blockchain. Like, is this sneaker real? did one own it before I bought this? Like that, like what we see on OpenSea with buying an NFT, that ledger of ownership, right? And the authenticity. I felt like that needed to exist for sneakers, and it was kind of something that I was obsessed with. And when NFTs started to take off in 2021, it seems to be that moment where culture and Web3 were actually finally crossing over. We're seeing Artifact with their digital sneakers. We're seeing NBA Top Shot. We're seeing mainstream people talk about the stuff that I'd been obsessed with for almost a decade. And I was like, okay, this is the moment. This is the moment where all my passions come together and it's all going to explode. And so now I need to do something in this space. So I was just diving all the way in. My best friend and I were trying to launch one of the world's first physical sneaker NFTs. I was consulting to sports leagues in Australia about how they can create their NBA Top Shot equivalent, and just working through all these ideas. And then eventually, my best friend and I started working on Bricktopians together, and we're like, you know what? This kind of blend between high quality art and community and like being able to build on it and evolve it in the future. Okay, this feels like the fit of what we want to do. And so I pushed all the other ideas to the side and just went all in on it, and super glad that we did.
That's so sick, man. I feel like after 10 years and like after you see people actually start talking about it, you're like, damn, I'm actually not insane. And like, this is something that's real. It probably felt like that at some point. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned like, kind of the idea of like the sneakers being able to like actually verify like who was the owner before it. Like, is it a real shoe? Because that's a big issue in the industry, right? I mean, were
Fully.
you able like ever into like, I'm guessing you were like a sneakerhead at one point. Were you able like ever into like selling sneakers, like doing reselling or anything like that?
Yeah, so where this all kind of came together for me, sometimes I call it like that Batman origin story moment, was I was really into blockchain as a concept, and I also was really into sneakers. And I was trying to buy a pair of Yeezys through Instagram, and I got scammed. I got rugged,
Oh man.
and it made me go, like, I was so frustrated. And I was like, hold on, like, why can I not just, how is it possible in this day and age that I can talk with someone on the internet, but I can't verify that they actually have the real shoes and buy off them directly? Why do I have to go through StockX and pay like a $50 authentication fee
Oh
on top
man.
of the shoe fee? This is ridiculous. And so that's where my whole mindset kind of shifted, and I was like, all right, this is how these two passions come together. And yeah, I was a massive sneakerhead, and would always flip sneakers or try to camp out to get the rarest sneakers. And so those two passions aligned very closely.
That's how it came together. I love that, man. I used to, I don't know, I think I might have made a post about this a couple of days ago, but I think back maybe like 5 years ago, I was reselling sneakers as well. So I was
Yeah.
like big into that game, right? Like Yeezys, Travis's, like going on the sneakers app. Like I remember being in school and there was like shoes that would drop at like 12 p.m. I'm in the middle of class. Like I would just go into the sneakers app and just like try to buy them like as soon as possible. I never actually thought about that because when I came to realize that about blockchain NFTs, that whole thing, it was like a little late that I was kind of like getting past that phase of like sneaker reselling. But thinking back at it now, I think it would have been like amazing. I definitely got rugged a couple of times. I think I like resold shoes that I got rugged on sometimes. It was like, just playing the game, it's like, I don't know, 16, 15, something like that. And like just playing the game. But I think that's actually like a really smart sort of like use case. And I know at one point you were really exploring that. So it's like really sick to see. And I mean, I think like this kind of all ties into like how Bricktopians came about, right? And I mean, one thing I'm really curious about when I seen like your journey and like your story is like, how do you do it? Like, how have you been able to sustain a community for the last like four years when like we look back at a project that was around a year ago, 90% of them are gone, right? I think 90% of them are at zero. Founders are not active. Like, how have you managed to sustain sort of like one activity and like a strong community over the last 4 years?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, I think it comes down to, if we're talking about like the actions necessary, I think it really comes down to treating people in the community like they're individuals, not like they're a group. So it's like we have a really strong community of creators now. We have just today or yesterday, we crossed 300 creators in our community. And a lot of people
That's
tell
crazy.
me Yeah, thank you. And a lot of people tell me like, oh, it feels like there's so many people posting about Bricktopians these days. This is crazy. Like, there's so many people on the timeline. But it wasn't like some like, all right, let's get as many people into this as we can. Then let's tell them to post about us, and that's going to raid and take over the timeline. It wasn't like that at all. It literally started with Depot as our first creator, me just being like, hey man, I like your content. I see the PFP you're rocking. I feel like they're not doing a lot for you, but if you come and join me, I'll support your journey. And then he came and joined. And like 10 other people we did the same thing with. And then literally it was like one at a time. I remember thinking of the goal of having 100 creators. And I was like, there's no way we'll ever hit 100. That's crazy. That's an insane amount. We're at 20 right now. And that was so hard. And literally up until 300 yesterday, it just felt like we were treating people like individuals. When people buy a brick, we onboard them by I send them a personalized video to let them know like, hey, welcome to the community. This is what it's all about. We're so happy to have you. And so it's just always been about treating people like individuals, because then that compounds. And the best part is that people then post about it because they want to. They do it. They post because they like it. They're not posting because they have some like other financial incentive or anything like that. They're posting literally just because they've had a good time here. And so that's something that I've found to be incredibly valuable from a strategy standpoint, or from an action standpoint. And then on a personal motivation standpoint, like I just don't think I was about to diss a lot of other projects, but I don't want to take that direct. It's more just, I really have believed if we play the long-term game, and not the long-term game that most Web3 projects play, which is, I'm going to use the word long-term so I don't have to take responsibility right now, right? Not that, but if we play the long-term game of, hold on, if I just keep stacking bricks in this way on top of each other, I see how this compounds into a really good outcome for everyone. So for me, like a very logical one on this creator focus recently has been, hold on, if we just add one creator at a time, imagine if we had 1,000 creators. So we had one of the best distribution networks of messaging in the industry, right? That seems like a really good magnet for a whole lot of other random good stuff that I can't predict right now, but I know there's a lot of positive opportunity that would come to that cohort, or I know that it would become a household name at that point, or I know like a lot of benefits will happen. I even was writing a post earlier today that I'll post at some point later today, but it's like the point of building personal brand is to increase your luck. You can't be determinative and be like, oh, this specific thing will happen. It's like, no, you're just like increasing the chance that positive things happen. I see the community building in the very same way. It's like if we take a long-term perspective with it, we do the things that build the total value of that community, the total size of that community, how much people love being in that community. You do all that stuff and you just do it one at a time. You kind of build this net where like opportunities for the collective just start to come and appear. And so I've just kind of had that belief. And so now I'm just trying to keep on compounding on top of that.
Yeah, man. No, I think that's a smart play, and I'm sure the vision has always changed when you're running a business, right? Like the vision you have on day one is not the vision you have,
Totally.
in year one. Like for you guys, what's that like roadmap been like? And right now, where you guys are at, you're at 300 creators. What's the big vision? Is it 1,000 creators, like you said, or is it something bigger?
Yeah. So I think my biggest regret as a founder, but you can only look at this stuff looking back. You can never look at this stuff looking forward. And when the entire world, including the biggest investment funds, the biggest billionaires, like all this stuff, were saying the world was going to go one way and it went another, it's very hard. Like it's easy in hindsight to think, oh, I wish I did things a little bit differently, but it's also impossible because at that point in time, the world was all telling all of us that this was the way the world was going. Like, where is the metaverse now that Facebook poured billions into? Where is the Bored Ape? No, I don't like to diss other projects, but or not even the Bored Ape one, not even the other side, but it's just like the user base that all said, oh, we're all going into digital worlds. Like that's what's going to be important. So I think big thing if we think about roadmap and stuff like that is we were definitely meta chasing at the beginning. I think that's what most inexperienced founders or new founders do, which is you like trying to move towards the moving target of like, oh, and we never did this, but it's like a lot. It's like, oh, we're releasing a token. It's like, okay, but what's the token going to do? It's like, we'll figure that out later. But right now, everyone's releasing tokens, so we're going to release a token. Okay, what do you do with the token? You stake the token. It's like, okay, cool, we've added staking, all that sort of stuff. We were very similar in that we were doing a lot of meta hopping and chasing things that now in hindsight, it had no future. Whereas like the creator program, I can actually see how this compounds indefinitely, or has a ceiling much greater than what I currently imagine it is. Similar to how I said 100 creators was impossible before, and now we're at 300. Who knows what that ceiling is in terms of numbers and the impact it can have. So the roadmap is still the same. We're building, it's been much harder than we thought it would be. And that's my second regret. We're still building a 3D printed sneaker. That's something that we've been building and going to be releasing within our community. So on the development side, that sneakerhead love is still very much at the core and center of what I've always wanted to build, and is on what I would call the building side. And then on the I would almost call it growth or community side is the creator vision, which is very much centered on how can we create value now, not promise value in the future. Like how can we deliver value today? So obviously I released a guide on how to win your own brand opportunities, and I'm giving feedback to people in our community. That's value we can deliver today. That's not value like we're going to say, hey guys, at some point in the future, we're going to have some education coming in on how to be a better creator. We can make people better today. We can share job opportunities today. We can share content opportunities today. And that's been really fundamental. Like I just don't actually see other projects in this space do this, where everyone is focused on things that are down the line so they don't have to take responsibility for it right now. And I've just been so locked in over the past year on like, how can we not promise anything and deliver today? And I think that mindset shift has been really valuable for us.
Yeah, man. I think that's one of the biggest things that projects lack on. Like I've had the chance to like sit down and talk to a lot of project founders, and like the biggest thing is like they're always like, yeah, we have this big vision. We want to launch this token, and we want to launch this metaverse, and we want to launch this product. And it's like, okay, but like, how does it actually tie back into like the token? Like, how does the token tie back into this? And how do you actually make revenue? Because like a lot of these things are just like fluff. It's like, oh, I'll launch a token, we'll figure out how to make money from there, right? Like the way I love that you guys are taking is like you're still within the sneaker passion. You still have the community you guys have built. You haven't been burnt through all the funds, but on top of that, you have like a business model that you're building, which is at the end of like it's just like a big flyover, like right, like you guys are rewarding the creators as well as you're building a business model, which is like if you get one deal. I bought a Bricktopian yesterday actually, and it was like, okay, if you get one deal off of buying a Bricktopian, like it pays for the Bricktopian itself. Like it's a no-brainer. And I think you building that flywheel and like actually putting thought into that process is something that a lot of uh, projects out there and just founders overall don't actually take the time to really like dive into. So that I think that's a really good thing to sort of like take away from what you guys have sort of done. And I mean, I wanna, because I know you mentioned there's a couple of things that you've learned throughout the last couple of years, but what's been like one of those like aha moments or like one of those big takeaways that's been like, okay, this is like one big lesson that I can take away with me from building within Web3? Like what's one business lesson that you've kind of taken away in the last couple of years?
Yeah, you actually kind of called out both of them. And there's two lessons I want to talk about, one on the negative side, one on the positive side. So on the negative side, I would say I was very much like this. I think also the space is very much like this and actually wants this in the short term. And that is let's just do this now and we'll figure it out later. And I think that mindset kind of is very present throughout most of what people want, like most of how projects build, and also what people want. We all want the announcement. We all want where this could go in the future and what could be built on top of this. That's what we're all hungry for. And something that just became really clear to me was I started to look back at projects that released that were like the next big thing over the past 3 years. And I started to see it's like literally no one actually cares when whatever they talked about is either released or doesn't release at all. Like everyone just like, it's like they just kind of become invisible, right? And I was just like, this is just not a way to win. And also when you just announce stuff for the sake of announcing it, you paint yourself into a corner where you're committing to building what the meta of the moment wants. So it might take you 6 months, a year, 2 years to build whatever you're talking about. Market might have shifted in a completely different direction. And then you're in a position where you're like, do we follow through on our promise, but it's going to be bad? Or do we pivot, but everyone who wants that thing will hate us? And I definitely have made that mistake multiple times. And it's something that I think, as in like painting yourself into that corner is not a position that you want to be in. So I'd say one of the key lessons I've learned is just focus on what you can deliver now, to go back to that message that I was sharing, because then you can actually get a taste of if people like it or not. And you can compound on it and build on it as you're getting that positive feedback loop. So the next thing that I would say has been a really positive lesson for us is that just be like, you can align the benefits of everyone. Exactly as you said, Juan, if people buy a Bricktopian, they can make that back in their first brand deal. And that is an amazing incentive. Even better than that, we've wanted to launch this program, but people keep buying the bricks. So it's been really funny. We haven't actually needed to in the end. But what we've wanted to do is do this thing that we call the Brickto Recruit Program, where we actually, if someone doesn't want to buy a brick, we pay them with a brick for their first brand deal. So it's like,
Oh, that would be sick.
so it doesn't cannibalize any of the growth of the organization, but because we would have distributed those funds anyway, but instead of paying someone, we use those funds to buy them a brick and get them in so they can make a piece of content and join our creator program. So we're trying to find the ways to align the objectives of everyone so that we can grow the total size, the scale, the value, everything of that community, and do it in a way that's sustainable. We're not like just burning out and hoping for the best. We're not just kicking the can down the road. We're doing it like right now.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think that's a great idea. I think just rewarding people with bricks just like gives them a bigger incentive to like, okay, you get a piece, you get a sort of like a taste of what we're doing. Like, just come get more. Like now you're just getting rewarded into this asset that's going to give you more access into that later. And I think that's been I think that's really good. And I think you guys have done maybe similar things in the past where you've rewarded creators and you've rewarded people with Bricktopians. And there's like people that talk about it and do giveaways. And I think that's been like a big sort of like acquisition channel for you guys. And I think your content has been like one of those like big leverages that you've been able to pull on like always, where it's like, okay, now you have this brand and now you have this sort of like foundation you can build on. And I think, would you say that that's been one of the biggest sort of like acquisition channels for you guys, which is like your content, or has it been something bigger?
Yeah,
It's really curious.
great question. I think most founders should think of community building in this way, or community growth in this way, which is at the beginning, you have no momentum. Like if you think about when I started making content, it was a year-ish after we launched. When I started getting decent content was probably a year and a half, 2 years after we launched, like very dead time in the market and dead time for any project, right? So it's not like we had any real momentum at that point in time of people being like, oh yeah, like let me get into bricks. I've heard so much about them. For so many people, there were thousands of projects launching, like no one knew anything about any of them. And so what I found was at the beginning, it has to be all you as the founder. Like Leon Aboud talks about this a lot, the founder funnel. It's got to be you on the timeline, beating the drum, sharing the vision, sharing the mission, sharing the messages. And then what the beautiful thing is, what's happened in the past 6 months or so is that if you actually do a good job at delivering value today, what ends up happening is people start to post organically themselves because they want to, not because there's a raid, not because there's a giveaway, not because of anything like that. They do it from their own sense of like, I've really enjoyed this. Let me share the message. And so what I've found in the past 6 months is that it's actually more growth comes from someone with 400 followers posting that they had a great time here than me with 40,000 followers posting about how good it is here. Like the 400 follower person will get like 3 people to buy and join us, and I might get 1 if I'm lucky, right?
Yeah.
And that just shows the impact of like actual community. Like how often do you watch a TV show because your best friend told you that they know you and you have to watch this, versus you seeing a billboard 100,000 times like on the train home from work, right? Like which one are you going to pay more attention to? It's your friend. Well, in that context, your friend has no followers, but you have a relationship with them, and it's that type of messaging that we've found to be the most impactful for the most part of this year and the end of last year as well.
Yeah, I think I think that's a great analogy. And I would agree with you. I think having people talk about their experiences with you guys can be a lot more powerful than the founder. Uh, just because, like, obviously on your side, you're a little bit more sort of like, um, oh man, I forgot the word, but you know, you're the founder, right? So like, people are gonna like know you want to talk about the project rather than like a community member talking about their experience and the project and all these sort of things. And I think going back to the content side of things, I think for you, like I said earlier, it's been like a big leverage that you can always pull on, where it's like, okay, you're like top of the funnel, like you share the vision for what you guys are doing, and then the community will see it, and if they support it, which most of the time I'm sure they do because they love you, they'll get that word out even further. And I think, like, I know a lot of founders when I talk with them and I tell them like, hey, you need to focus on content. So it's like, oh, I don't have time. Or maybe it's like, hey, like that's really hard. I'm not good at content. Like for you, like what's that experience been like where it's like you're not just running a company, right? Like you're trying to build a shoe, you're running a team, you have the creators, like you have all these things. Like how do you manage your time to like still manage to create that top of the funnel content while like at the end of the day, like running a business at the core of it all?
Great question. So one thing I'll say is that I'm very lucky to have an awesome team. So shout out the entire Bricktopians team for making me look way better than I actually am. So that's I really appreciate the kind words, Juan. Second thing I'd say is there's an awesome book called Buy Back Your Time, which is my favorite book of the past year. I've just found it really helpful. It just teaches you the frameworks for understanding how to like build leverage within your own business to free yourself up to do the next most important thing. So that book for me was really impactful in terms of like if I look like I get heaps done, it's basically because of that book. So that's the second thing that I would recommend anyone who's time poor and wants to make content as well to check out. So that was called Buy Back Your Time. And then the third thing is I actually learned this from a workshop with Leon Aboud the other day, which was really cool, about how I asked Leon, I was like, hey man, like what's your schedule look like? You like getting to the office 4 hours early and like pumping out content? Like how are you doing this? And I was hoping his answer was going to be, yeah, dude, I block out 3 hours a day, and that's how I get this much content done. Because then I could go, all right, well, I have to block out 3 hours a day, and I'll get this much content done. But the reality was that he just makes content while he works, which I think, and I was like, damn, I can't believe that's the answer, because that just means I need to figure out how to do that. But I'm not going to lie, he's kind of right. So there's what I've found over the past, even just this week alone, I've been trying to make content, like even off the back of this podcast, I'm probably going to take 1 or 2 things and just immediately turn them into tweets. The difference probably between me and Leon, although Leon might do this, I don't know. I would imagine he has this built in to some degree, but it didn't come up in the call. And something that I do personally, that I found to be really valuable is I use a scheduling tool. So I still write the post spontaneously. So like you and I might have a conversation, I get an idea, I'll write the post instantly, but I'll look for a gap in my current content schedule and I'll put it there, because it's like still got the energy of the spontaneity, unless it's about today's news, today's tariffs, today's whatever. If it's something that's more just I've experienced in a meeting, or on a podcast or something like that, and it's an idea that's come from that, I'll schedule it a couple days later just so I can fill out my content calendar and stay consistent. I'd say schedule it. I use a thing called Buffer. A lot of people use Hype Fury. I just think scheduling your content is the key to consistency, because if you can schedule at least one piece per day, then you will always be on the timeline. And then anything that comes to you organically, you can just add on top of it, but you know your bases are always covered. And then the final thing I'd say is that I posted my first video in a very long time yesterday, and that wasn't an accident. What I did was I rented out a podcast studio. Shout out to Keikio, who gives me access to his studio, and I rent it from. Best studio in Kent. But what I did was I went down to his studio for the day, and I prepared like 8 or 9 videos, and then like a couple like random throw me a word and I'll talk about that topic ideas. I just spent like 4 or 5 hours there and recorded a whole heap of content, then gave it to an editor, and that editor's slowly just working through it and turning it into clips. But if you think about it, I lost one day, and now if I post 1 to 2 of those videos a week, I'm now going to look like I'm making video content every week for the next, I don't know, like 5 to 10 weeks, but I'm not. It was that one day and then one video editing session. So that, I think a little bit of the key is like for kind of try and give yourself that 4-hour window, that 1-day window to create a bunch of your higher quality stuff in advance. And then for the more spontaneous stuff, just schedule it into your calendar so you are always consistent. And then the final bit is build on top of it and just throw whatever comes out once you've kind of got that locked in.
Yeah, man. I think there's just so many ways to take like the content approach, like so many different ways. I guess this would be more of like a selfish question, but I'm really curious, like what's sort of like the best style of content you've seen work? Is it video? Is it long form? Is it short form? Stories? Like what is the secret sauce if you want to call it that?
Yeah, it's a great question. The answer, there's actually multiple answers depending on your goals. I'd say for conversions for an agency, it's definitely video. And video case study is definitely the one. So like that's the one that immediately comes to mind for that. But I was talking to Caleb about this because he does amazing podcasting content. He hosted Farouk, he's hosted myself as well, and B-Check and a number of other amazing creators. And and also a whole heap of amazing founders as well. The one thing I was going to say about Caleb, or what I was talking to Caleb about, was I told him, just so you know, video content will like never grow you. It won't be the thing that goes viral and is the reason you get 3K followers overnight. But it's actually more valuable than the stuff that will get you 3K followers overnight. Because it is very easy. There's basically 2 types of content, in my opinion, or 2 things to think about, which is, are you going for growth or are you going for depth/brand building? And let me tell you, there are more people who know Caleb's face than know my face, right? And I've got 45K followers, and Caleb would be between 5 and 10K followers at the moment. And more people will know Caleb's face. He has deeper relationships with a lot of the biggest people in the industry than I will. And that's because he creates high quality, deep content. We see the same with Leon Aboud. He's done an amazing job of this. Just creates such high quality content that the right people are listening to that or watching it or reading it. But in terms of if you want to grow, and I was talking to Caleb about this as well, the key to growth is trend hacking or timeliness. So if there's like a multiplication equation, it would be like quality of the content times how quickly you jumped onto a news story times how big the news story is. So in my experience, I grew by 10K followers in a week. The week that
That's crazy.
the week that ChatGPT 4 came out. Now, I won't go too deep into this story, but I had written 2 threads earlier that week. I was trying to write like 3 threads a week. and I wrote 2 threads that took me like 8 hours each, and both of them flopped, and I was so frustrated. I was so angry that I was like, I put so much time into this, and this is how it goes, like blah blah blah. Like, I can't believe it. And then literally I was eating my lunch. I can almost taste the exact sandwich I was eating. And I was eating my lunch and I had 30 minutes and I went, all right, this ChatGPT thing has just come out. I'm just going to look at what's around on Twitter right now and see if there's anything interesting that I could throw into a thread. Whatever I find, I'll put in it. I literally pulled 5 use cases that were retweets, like quote retweets, and put them into a thread and said, hey, ChatGPT 4 just released. Here's everything you might have missed. 5 extra tweets, took me 25 minutes to write, grew me by 3K. I ran it back the next day. ChatGPT 4 came out 24 hours ago. You saw these use cases, but here's the latest ones you will have missed. Bang, another 4K. I just did that back to back to back. And if you think about that in the equation, it was the quality of the content. In that instance, it was easy and quick to read, which is what the equality in that context meant. It was timely. I did it like an hour or 2 after it had released, right? And then I did it 24 hours after, and that was a part of the story. And the magnitude of the story was massive. So these Trump tariffs, if you released, I'll just use the Trump tariffs as an example. If you released a thread 1 hour later about the Trump tariffs that was quick, high quality and easy to digest, you'd probably grow by 10K followers. And that's just kind of, I don't know how the algorithm works these days from a follower growth perspective, but you'd at least grow by 2K just off that. If you're quick, high quality, and big story, bang, you're up. So that's what you got to think about. You got to think about the goal. So I actually think what Caleb does with his content is way better for having a career in this space. But the thing that I would suggest as well, and I've mentioned this to him too, is that when you see the opportunity to go after a big story and just be quick on it, you should often take it if you have something interesting to say.
Yeah, that was great feedback, bro. I think we have to do another session where we just like catch up on content because I think you have amazing ideas, and this is something I'm trying to crack where it's like maintain like a good enough quality of content that's like sort of like tied back to what I want to talk about, but like not go super like extreme to the other side, but like still like growth hack with like the big news and these sort of things. So I've been trying to crack sort of like that in between, and I think you've been able to crack that really well. Especially going back to like the GPT. I remember those. Like I think it was like that week, 2 week period where it's just like crazy growth.
Right.
I was like, holy. And I think consistency always like it's at the core of everything, right? Like if you're consistent with it, like at the end of the day, it's like it's gonna continue to push forward.
Sure.
But it's funny because you mentioned something that when you were at Leon's event, you were looking for him to tell you like the secret to actually making content. I feel like we're always looking for what's the secret behind like being successful? You can insert whatever it is that you want, content, money, whatever. And I think we're always looking for a secret. And I came to a realization when I went to the Alex Ramosi workshop in February, and I was expecting to walk out of there with like this big thing I had no idea existed. And I absolutely like that definitely did not happen. I spent $5,000. It was the best $5,000 I spent. It was an amazing experience, but there wasn't anything that I didn't already know. It was more so like, okay, you know what to do. It was more so like reassuring, at least for me, where it's like, okay, I know what to do because this is like the thought process I've always had. Now it's just about getting it done. But it's funny that we're always like looking for that secret sauce, whether it's like content, money, a business idea, whatever it may be. So it's just funny that you brought that up. And I think I kind of want to tie it back to like some projects and founders that I've talked to, right? Like they're always looking for like, hey, like what's the secret to like growth? Like how did I miss something? Is there something that I just haven't cracked just yet? What's the one thing or like your biggest sort of feedback for these founders that are building now? Because like when you were building, it's completely like a completely different environment to what it is right now, right? Like right now we're in a bear market. I believe when you launched, it was like peak of the bull. Like everybody was talking about NFTs. Like you were like perfect timing. Like right now, if you were to start from zero, how would you approach? Would you even go into NFTs? Like what how would that approach be for you now?
If I was to do, let's say I was just doing the creator thing at the moment, I still think the NFT side is valuable, but I'd probably do it either as a free NFT or a low cost NFT where it's like a subscription, kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen this group. It's Metaverse HQ. Theirs is like it's like you buy a year of access to
Yeah.
the thing, because that one of the issues with NFTs is like that they're it's very unclear about like where certain benefits come from, at what point they come in, at when do they end, all that sort of stuff, depending on the project. And so, if I was to advise someone today, I honestly just don't think it depends. It's so funny because like I could advise myself, like if I would advise like a version of myself to do the same thing. I think having an NFT collection is way more powerful than just having, let's say I wanted to do the creator group and just do it as a creator group. I think there is something really cool about having a sense of membership, where you have to buy in to get access. I think having that component of it is very cool. And so I would probably do the same thing again. But I also love the fact that, yeah, I don't know, that there's a little bit of a magic that comes when you have all of that within an NFT community. But I find it hard to give advice because it's almost like in 2 years from now, like I went on a call with the Unfungible guys and I just gave some advice to some abstract founders. And obviously, all the advice is around launching, and I can give advice around that till the cows come home, right? But the advice that I would give is make sure that you truly do have something sustainable afterwards, right? That you can do, as in like to continue the project. Because I'm very lucky that I just kept tinkering until I kind of found something, and it fit really well. It was a bit of an ikigai, yourself pushed outwards. It's like what I enjoyed to do, like help people find opportunities. It aligns like all the goals of everyone. But I think if you're going after these, I really worry for the projects that are going after too big a goal, because I don't think there's enough funding that you can get from an NFT sale or a token sale or anything like that at this point in time that's going to carry you to where you need to go to do one of these global missions. And what I love is that when I say that, there are founders that will prove me wrong, and those people don't need to hear this advice because they know who they are. You know what I mean? Like they're going to go after it. They're going to take a Lucas strategy. They're going to start selling online on Amazon. Then they're going to get into Walmart, and they're going to do the like maybe niche specific version of that. But I think a lot of people go in kind of like what we were talking about earlier, and they go, all I need to do is I'm going to mint out, and then I'll figure it out later. And I just think if I heard a founder doing that today, and I do tell founders this in private, I tell them, I'm like, don't do it. I'm like, it's not what you want, not the direction you want to go.
Yeah, man. I think I've had conversations, and I talked to a project founder. I talked to Kevin from Final Boss actually. He told me the same thing, where it's like the NFC model is pretty much broken to the point where it's like, I don't know, think about it, right? Like if you're trying to run a business, like how do you sustain something that just gives you like a big one-time like cash injection? Like there's no
Nothing
way to
on earth.
sustain that. No, like
Nothing on earth.
I don't think there's like been one business that's ever survived past 2 years that's ever done that. Like there's just no way. Um, and I think I agree with you where like the biggest issue is that they don't have like I hate, but like the long term vision, right? Like they don't look at the down the road where it's like, okay, yes, we raised $1 million. That's cool. At one point, that's gonna run out if you're actually doing something with it. Even if you're not, right? Like if you want to keep it for yourself, at one point that's gonna run out. Like $1 million will only last you a couple of years, if that. And I think that's been like one of the biggest issues that we've been trying to crack within Web3, where it's like, okay, how do we actually build a business that's sustainable long term, right? You have NFTs, then you have tokens, and then that's it. Like the business model is gone, it's over. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like how do you see it?
I think I've just got a couple thoughts on that. One thing I love to see is like, it's really cool to see how like the Plague, like they've got making coffee. So it's like, okay, cool. There's an actual business here. Like, even if they only had a small team, I'm like, I can see how this can keep going for a very long time. And you've got community members who might go and evangelize the coffee brand, get it into their local cafes, get it into their local shops, all that stuff. I can see the vision there. I think the biggest mistake that most founders make is they assume they've already got product market fit because their idea is good, right? Dangerous assumption. Even on the creator side of what we've been doing, right? Like, I created a creator community within Bricktopians almost a year ago now, or just over a year ago now. Imagine if I'd gone, okay, people seem to love this. I'm going to make the creator side a paid subscription, and that will sustain the project. And then no one wants to buy it. Or after 2 months, they're like, why am I still paying for this? Or imagine if that was the business model we went with. It's like, you're so close, but you missed that. And it's like, bang, there isn't a model there. But for us, I had to keep tinkering. I had to speak to brands. Do you want this? Do you care about micro KOLs? Like, is that something you're interested in? Maybe you only want to work with the big guys, right? Like, is there actually demand here? And just lucky for us, there's more and more brands that kind of feel like they have paid way too much on the overpriced side. For all I know, that demand changes, and I have to evolve the model over time. And I'm just very lucky that I get to be accountable to the model as it stands in the moment, and I can feel it shift as it shifts, right? Like, the number of creators brands want to work with, the types of creators the brands want to work with, the amount they're willing to pay to work with creators. Like, I can feel it in real time. It's not something I'm predicting 6 months from now, because even with our own model, who knows 6 months from now if there's actually still demand for this. But because I'm in it and I'm working in it, I can feel that happen in real time, and you can adapt with it. Whereas every other project founder is just like, yeah, we're going to make a game and there's going to be in-game assets. And it's like, okay, let's just start with no one wants to play the game. Let's forget. What if no one wants to play the game? Then what? Like, and so it's just very dangerous. And so my advice is, I honestly think, and this goes back to blockchain, and I experienced this. I'm not even kidding. This is kind of full circle. I experienced this 8 years ago, probably maybe 9 years ago, which was, you know how I said the decentralized Uber, like people were like, oh, it's going to be great. There's going to be no Uber, and drivers are going to get paid more and riders are going to spend less. It's going to be a beautiful utopia, right? Great use case. Why does it not exist? It's like, well, because it's actually kind of a pain in the ass to add blockchain into everything unnecessarily. And there's a bunch of that. There's actual reasons for a company to exist, feedback loops, implementing the feedback. Honestly, the motivation to grow the company ends up making you accountable to making it better, and competition and all that sort of stuff, right? Very similarly, people should only launch a project if the thing actually requires an NFT, if the thing actually requires a tradable form of gated access, if the thing actually requires having a community, even, right? Like, I think Unfungible kill it at what they're doing, and I think that running a community for them would end up splitting their focus, whereas we are inherently a kind of a crowd. That's why we have a community built into what we're doing, right? And if you look at different models, there are models where it makes sense to have a group of people, and there's models where it doesn't. And so I think it really comes down to, does your thing actually require an NFT? In the instance of, by the way, brands like what you guys do, Unfungible and all that, one actually really underrated thing that I saw was they, after their workshop, you would have seen on the timeline, one, you would have gotten one of these too, right? Like,
I was actually in the workshop and I seen you
that's
ask
what
the
I
question.
thought. I didn't want to say it in case you weren't, but like, if you're thinking about the right way to do it, I'm just going to speak to the service people here, which is that they had a, here's your proof of I've forgotten what the
Proof of attendance.
Proof of attendance, but I'm not going to lie, proof of workshop would have been a great word now that I think about it. But what they did with that was effectively a POAP, right? Like, that's where you can bring NFTs into the model, where it's like, hey, you went to the last one, this is also your key to the next one. Like, that's where I think it's really cool on the service side as well.
I like that approach. I'm gonna take some notes off of that. So I really like that approach. But I think, Ben, I think it was funny because a lot of founders should ask themselves that question, like, is there even a need for an NFT or a token for what we're doing? 90% of the time it's going to be no. Like the real reason is like, no, you don't actually need a token to like build this game. Like you should actually like build a game, see if people like it. If you like it, then build a token around it. Sure. I think, yeah, it'd be funny to see if founders actually took the time before they even started building. It's like, okay, would we even need an NFT or a token for this? I honestly think 90% will be no. But at the same time, the power that I see behind NFTs is they act as sort of like a launch pad. They give you the funds to build for like those visionary teams that are early on.
And also, they do get community behind you if you have like, I'm going to use Pudgy as an example, right? Like, there is this, even if there was never any value that flowed in like a direct way back to the holders, there is this symbiosis where people in Pudgy want to push the Pudgy brand harder. The Pudgy brand gets, which helps like the revenue side, which helps the brand get bigger,
Yep.
which drives more attention to the OG piece. And there is this inherent, like, that is one of the ones where I actually think there's always exceptions to every rule. I think they're an exception where you don't need an NFT, but it actually makes it better that it has one. Like everyone's like so bought in on the success of it, and everyone's trying to succeed together, which is growing the potential of what they can do and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where it's very cool.
I think it becomes very powerful at that point. Like, imagine the thought of like being able to raise your first, let's say, 500,000 to 1 million, and on top of that, have the first 1,000 true fans who like really believe in your product. I think it's like nowhere else you could do this. Yeah, you could raise funds from VCs, but like they're gonna be on your ass. They're like, hey, like I need to make my money back. When you do it in this way, it's like, yeah, like you have so much more growth. But it is kind of like a give or take, right? Like it has to be for those founders who are really in it. Yeah, it's one of those like really interesting things. But Alex, man, I know we've been at it for quite some time now. Maybe we'll just wrap it up with just one question that I wanted to ask you that came to mind. If you could change one thing in Web3, what would it be?
I don't know how you'd change it, but I think that if we go back to those examples of, I know I keep bringing back to this, but like I got into this space because I got excited about the ideas of what you could build with blockchain. Like even things like CryptoKitties, right? Like now people might hyper financialize old NFTs like CryptoKitties, but when I was like in the space and a friend was telling me about it when it first came out, like it was just looked at like, hey, look at this cool thing that is fun to tinker with. Like, hey, I'll breed mine with yours. Let's see what we get. Oh, like it came out with a really random color. Like, oh, let me do mine with yours. It was just like people who are really like, I just love experimenting with what you can do with this stuff. I wish there were more small scale, and hopefully AI changes this. I wish there were more small scale Web3 tinkerers and builders who were celebrated in this space, and that people gave their projects a chance to mature before hyper financializing them, right? Because like you could make a very cool Web3 game, a very cool indie game, a very cool like CryptoKitties spin-off. Like I always used to want to create like a CryptoKitties Pokemon fusion where you like battle each other, and if yours dies, it actually dies. Like there's just so many like cool ideas that could be low budget, highly integrated with Web3 and blockchain and collection and collector mindset that should be celebrated that we just don't really see ever on the timeline. And so I feel like that for me has always been the promise of Web3, and that's the sort of stuff that gets me excited.
Yeah, man. I love that approach. Like I do think there needs to be something that's like low cost, high quality, and it just like mixes both worlds together. And I don't think there's anything like that, or at least not to like the scale that we would want it to be. It's funny, yeah. Like you mentioned, like I don't know how we would change it, but I think just one step at a time. And kind of like having these conversations in the open and like your content, my content, Leon's content, like those are little things that help move that at least that needle forward. And like that's my goal, right? Like I want to help move the space forward a little bit. And if I'm able to do that through maybe these conversations or just any sort of content, I'm more than happy. So
100%. And I've
Alex,
loved the
man,
combo, man. It's been great.
it's been amazing, man. It's been really good. I appreciate you coming on, man. You're my second guest, so really happy to have you on. I bought a Bricktopian. I'm gonna be like part of the family there. I think you guys are absolutely killing it. So I'm just super happy to have you on. See that you guys are still building, and man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Hopefully, we'll catch up soon and just keep killing it, man. Keep crushing it.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on, man. Really enjoyed it.
No, of course, man. All right, see ya.
See ya.